This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
Danilo's free, and it goes to Gibbs wide.
First time we've seen them attack them, and there's Brandon! Well, that's what I've wanted to see Robinson do. Tyler one, he scores! And the City ground goes ballistic!
Here's Bob Williams, and he's through here! And in the end, Forrest will say it doesn't matter how you play as long as you win it!
Yeah! Forest Premier League!
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Red Side of the Trent as we look back and forward on a few days of Nottingham Forest news as Forest get off to a good start of their pre-season by seeing off Chesterfield in a 3-0 win before they head to Spain for their training camp ahead of games against Sunderland, Millwall and Elche respectively, as well as the imminent signing in of defender Nikola Milenkovic joining from Fiorentina. Joining me as ever is Christian Brown. Christian, how are you, mate?
Hello, I'm good, thank you, Adam. I hope you're good too.
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Obviously, touching on England and Colombia, unfortunately. Two finals for you, two devastating results. And the announcement of Gareth Southgate leaving.
Well, that was some respite, at least. But it's finally over. But no, like it's been pretty damaging a few hours. Obviously, the Copa America, I know you've seen as well, the final got delayed by like an hour and a half, 2 hours, because of obviously massive crowd issues outside. Basically, there's a load of people with tickets who had successfully gotten in. So the police are they shut all the gates and were apprehending the people already inside that didn't have tickets. But obviously that left people outside in like 50, 60 degree heat, something stupid, like just penned in. And it was really bad. Like obviously, as you can imagine, crowd comparisons go to much more worse events than that. Thankfully, no one was seriously harmed or worse. It could have been a very, very bad situation. So, but it's just the game itself had some parallels to the England game in that, both Messi had to go off injured, like Rodri went off injured for Spain, but ultimately, it's just painful. That final, but the 10 minutes after England scored are going to haunt me in the same way that 117 minutes after we scored against Italy are, in the same way that we had all the momentum in the palm of our hands and just chose to throw it away, quite literally in the Spain game, with that throw back to the halfway line and then Pickford punting it out of play. But yeah, bleak. Very bleak.
I mean, the Copa America lived up to its all hype. I've seen various things. I mean, I've seen Messi's ankle, so that was fun. And then I've seen, obviously, supposedly a priest punched Darwin Núñez in the face after he's trying to rope-a-dope someone in the stands. I mean, if he doesn't get a lengthy ban for that, then Eric Cantona is going to have some words, I think, for a Kung Fu kick on at least one fan who insulted his mother or whatever it was back in the 90s. So, swings and roundabouts. Forest got off to a good pre-season start, Christian. I never thought I'd ever say that in my life, to be honest, because it's normally an absolute car crash. It seemed I spoke to Reece 2.0 the other day, and I said to him, it seems like things are kind of feeling a little bit different. And this pre-season has got off to a really good start. I was really pleased with the result, obviously, but reportedly of what loads of people said about the performance.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like I said, I've never been one to take pre-season too seriously in terms of things. Like I remember I think the biggest comparison, you can have a very good pre-season and start very poorly. You can have a very bad pre-season and be all right in terms of it depends what you define as a good pre-season. For me, it's about tactical familiarity, getting players up to speed, getting them fit for the start of the season. Really, the only friendly that properly matters is a one just before the season starts, because that's where players about 85-90% intensity. Everything that comes before that's just a training exercise, basically. But by all accounts, it sounded pretty positive. It sounded like Forest played very professionally, which is nice to see. I guess you're never going to turn your nose up at winning a game of football, are you? So it was good from that side of things. But yeah, I agree, it does feel a bit different this time around. It feels a bit, I don't want to say more professional, because I don't think that's necessarily fair in what's come before, but it feels a bit more steady. Like there isn't a massive influx of signing. I don't think we're not expecting to make 15, 20 signings this summer, are we? We're maybe going to cap it in a single figure amount, which is unprecedented. Also, it feels like in recent years. So it feels like we've actually got a steady base to build off, which obviously Cooper never had the pleasure of having, really. So from that side of things, yeah, it does feel a bit different. It feels like we're actually adding in areas rather than adding wholesale. So naturally, there's a bit more familiarity to our game, and yeah, pleasing 3-0 win. By all accounts, it sounds like Sangare ran the show as well. Admittedly, this is a non-league team up until a few months ago, but hopefully it's going to be a real springboard for him, and we can see the best of him this season.
Yeah, the glowing reports were that he looks not only trim but strong and fit, and he kind of like looked like the player that we'd signed. I know, albeit against weaker opposition, but you still got to beat what's out in front of you and everything. Chris Wood obviously continued his goal scoring form. Good to see. It's funny because obviously the first season we come up, we had a shorter turnaround, not only because of the playoff but because of the Winter World Cup. So we signed about 1 million players last season. So many players were away on international duty, injured, waiting to sell players, sell Brennan Johnson really before we could get all of our signings across the line. It just seemed like a bit of kind of upside down world, whereas this just seems a bit more calm. Of like feel sorry a little bit for how like Cooper got sacked and then couldn't have this kind of window, whereas the last two he had absolute craziness to deal with, and then Nuno's kind of got the nice calmness. He's got his whole squad in bar like the goalkeepers, and then as me and Reese kind of were talking about Tayo Wundy on Saturday, it's come out that he actually picked up a knock and is injured again.
I saw it was a personal issue.
Well, I heard also from Paul Taylor that it's actually an injury as well, and he's had a setback. So God knows what to believe. So I'm hoping it's the personal issue, and he's all right. But I think Nuno
Taylor said in the day of the game it was a personal issue. So unless that suddenly changed,
I think it has changed. But I think Nuno Espirito Santo said he's had a bit of a setback and is hoping that he'll be okay for the trip to Spain. But he's not good. Not a good sign when you're hoping he's kind of got over all of his injury issues.
Hope it's just something small.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's a little niggle, but yeah.
But the other news coming out is obviously the imminent signing of defender Nikola Milenkovic, and as I've named this pod so elegantly as Voila, a big Serbian, a massive Serbian. Because almost the play on words of that has come from the Viola, come to Nottingham. That's what I thought. Whether you find that funny or not, it's a bit of a dad joke, to be honest. But early thoughts before we get our guest in.
Good, very good. We all said that, if you said to us, like, I think if you go back to what we actually said at the time, I imagine we probably did say this, the key sort of things to focus on were a goalkeeper, a winger, a younger version of Bolly, and maybe another striker. Those are the four things we all pinpoint and says these areas we really need to sort of nail down. And we've already got a goalkeeper in, which is very promising. Again, that's, as we've spoken about him before, he's one that can challenge in the immediate short term, but certainly looks like a long-term pick. And then this guy, Milenkovic, looks to be the tonic to what we need. I mean, like the best aerial success rate in Serie A last season. It's incredible. Like, we saw him at Euros for Serbia against England. He looked very good in that game. And obviously Serbia lost. And again, he only played about half hour, but still, he looked good. And he seems like a very sensible, astute signing, and one that can really, really like transform us a bit, because defensively we weren't really doing too much wrong in open play. I don't think it was just more from set pieces. So if you sign someone that can eliminate that, like we said before, if you take out, obviously, was it 23 goals, I think, whatever it was, if you half that or take 3/4 off that, you're probably looking at 3-4 places up the table just from that alone. So if we've got a guy that can help us stop that, then yeah, that could really be possibly the smartest piece of business we do all summer. So yeah, very, very excited by that.
A 6'8" goalkeeper who makes goals look like Power League goals, and then a 6'5" Serbian. I mean, what more do you actually need? Like, we might actually look capable this season from set pieces. Oh, it'd be lovely, and maybe and hopefully someone that can actually nod a few in at the other end for us, because we've not really had a goal scoring centre half for a while, really. I feel like Matt Mills and Ian Brecken were like the last couple that used to score quite frequently from set pieces. But we're going to bring it. Jacob scored. Used to score a few. Did you score a few? Eric Lehigh, the odd wonder goal, but fullback, so more likely to score, I guess. But we're going to bring in our guest. His name is Nima Tavallaesy. He's come from the Italian Football Podcast. So we will get into that and we'll see you in a bit. Joining us to give their insight on Nikola Milenkovic of Fiorentina is football journalist and co-host of the Italian Football Podcast, Nima Tavallaesy. Nima, thank you very much for joining us and giving us your time. How are you, first of all? I'm
good. It's good to be with you. Hope you're both well.
Yes, thank you very much. We're both well. The summer is here now. Now the Euros are finished. Disappointment both for Italy, and then obviously England in the final, and Christian's other native country in Colombia in the Copa America. He's had ultimate pain this summer. The news obviously has come out a bit about the blue in a sense, but it's really like built up a lot of steam ahead of this move of Nikola Milenkovic coming from Fiorentina for a report of 14 million euros to Forest. What have you made on the deal, first of all, overall, before we ask you more details about the player himself?
Well, I mean, I'm not surprised that he's leaving Fiorentina. I think it's been on the cards a little bit for a couple of seasons now. It's been obvious that he's been looking to make a move away. He's been linked with pretty much every big club in Italy. He's been linked with Inter, Milan, Napoli, Juve, but the deal has never materialized because, of course, for several reasons. One being, of course, that Fiorentina asked at the time when those links were being made, they asked for a little bit too much money than those clubs were willing to pay and didn't think he was worth those kind of sums. And then, of course, he stayed, and maybe the performances were not as good as when those links first were made. And so they died down, but it's been obvious that he's wanted to try a new challenge for a couple of seasons now. I mean, it's 7 years now in Florence. So,
yeah, I was going to ask you actually about that, because obviously he's been linked with, as you say, pretty much every big club in Italy has pretty much been sitting around, not saying Fiorentina, of course, but also across Europe as well. And I mean, United have been linked with him a few times. Why is it that nothing? I know you said about the cost price, but I know obviously like in Italy recently there've been like sort of like taxish laws to allow like Italian clubs to spend a bit more freely. Obviously we've seen Roma very much been beneficiaries of that. So it sort of strikes me that these Italian teams probably do or would have had that money to spend if they chose to like sanction anything. So why didn't they actually push the button on him at all?
Well, the growth decree has been no longer valid, and it only applies to people who've very simply put, have not been in Italy for the two preceding years. So, you know, that's why, you know, because of course you get a tax cut where you only pay 50% on 50% of the wages. If it's the growth decree, but that's kind of been cancelled now. So it's no longer valid. But the reason I think they haven't is one, cost, and two, also because he's you know, when he first you know came onto the scene in Serie A, he was very impressive, but he never managed to take that final step and consistently play at that high level so as to convince the top teams in Italy to push the button. So I think it's many things at once, many things combined that kind of prevented the biggest clubs in Italy to push the button. And I think with Manchester United, I think they've kind of, you know, with other defenders, high profile defenders, they've spent big, and those players have been flops. And I think maybe they saw weaknesses in his game, which he does have, and they were a little bit put off by the price tag.
You kind of caveat into my next question there, Nima. What are his like strengths and weaknesses as a defender? Like what type of defender is he as well? I guess that kind of ties it all into that one question in a sense.
Well, I mean, he can play in a back four centrally as a right centre back in a back four, and he can play in a back three. His strengths, I would say, he's aerially good. He's a very combative in the sense that he wants to, you know, he's very physical. He doesn't shy away from challenges. I'd say his read of the game is questionable. Now, some of that, of course, can be, you know, you can say, well, look at the managers he's played under. He's played under Vincenzo Italiano, who pretty much plays man marking all over the pitch, and isn't really good at, his teams are not very good at defending at all. And very often you see Fiorentina under Italiano, the defensive line is always exposed. So some of that is his fault. Some of it is the tactics. But I'd say that he's mentally a very strong player, and he's quite a character, in the sense that he's got a very strong character, and he's very hungry, has a lot of desire to do well and wants to win. But he does make mistakes. He does have a mistake in him, and we've seen that in throughout his tenure in Italy.
What sort of mistakes? I suppose the question we probably be asking as Forest fans. Like, so obviously said his reading the game maybe isn't the best compared to others, but like from what I can see, I think he had the highest aerial success rate in Serie A last season, which is pretty impressive. I mean,
he's very good in the air. He's very good in the air.
But what sort of mistakes are we talking about? Are we talking, because I mean, one of the main reasons I think we've been linked so heavily and obviously have pushed this through is because Forest conceded an ungodly amount of goals from set pieces last season. I think it was 23 in total, which is frankly appalling. No matter what league you're in, if you're letting in 23 goals from set pieces, that's just disgraceful. But so obviously he's been sort of signed to combat that. I'm guessing he doesn't really get done frequently from set pieces. So where might he get caught out?
Set pieces, no. Set pieces aerially, he's solid. The problem can be the read of the game. But again, it depends on the tactics. I think many times he's been exposed because the tactics and balance of the team have not been solid. And so when you're left alone for space, for pace with and space to attack you, because Fiorentina play with a very high line under Italiano, that defense has more often than not been exposed to that, to 1v1s, and with 3 against 2s where he's alone trying to defend, and also positionally, I think some of his decision making has been somewhat questionable at times. But look, I'm comparing him to the very top central defenders in the world, the best in the world, and that he doesn't qualify there. But under that level, that's where I'd put him. Not world class, but good.
Just on his technical ability, Nima, is he a defender that will play out from the back, or is he kind of a bit more of a standard kind of head it and kick it kind of defender and keep it quite simple? Because him next to Murillo could really complement each other in what you're saying in terms of he can go and attack the ball, and Murillo can kind of sweep up behind him because he's got the pace and the ability on the ball to start the attacks himself, really, in that sense. Do you understand what I'm saying here?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I think he's a decent passer. Fiorentina do like to build from the back, so that has never really been a problem. The problem has been the positioning, the read of the game, making tactical mistakes on the pitch, which has harmed Fiorentina. But I want to preface that by saying that some of that, or a lot of that, is system problems or lack of a defensive system under Italiano. So he's technically sound. He's okay. He's not Maradona, but he's not exactly Harry Maguire either. So he's somewhere in the middle there, I'd say.
It's been obviously a very interesting time for Fiorentina over the last couple of years. Obviously going to 2 Conference League finals under Italiano. He's now gone to Bologna. And I think it was the Monza coach, wasn't it? Was it Palladino?
Yeah, Raffaele Palladino.
Just gone to Fiorentina. So is it a case of him, Palladino, this sort of working in everyone's interest in that, that the player gets a move that he's maybe been pining for a while, the manager gets a chance to maybe move out a player that might not be part of his plans, and Forest get a player that's going to massively help them from an offensive standpoint? Is that the way you sort of see things at the minute, or?
I see it more as a case of Milenkovic wanting a new change, wanting a new challenge. I see it as Palladino would probably like to keep him, but after 7 years, this was probably the last chance, because he wasn't going to sign a contract extension, I think. And so I think this was the last chance for everybody to kind of amicably depart and part ways. So no, I think it was one of those situations where Fiorentina needed to make a little bit of money back on him and to reinvest. Palladino, wants to impose different kind of football than Vincenzo Italiano, who's a strict 4-3-3 manager. Palladino's more of a back 3-4-2-1, 3-5-2 kind of guy. He's very progressive and modern, Palladino passing game, but I don't think I think it was more an issue of wanting to cash in, and him wanting a new challenge after 7 years in Florence and Italy.
I mean, he's going to get a rude awakening from going from Florence to Nottingham. It's a absolute damning contrast in that sense of location. So I'm sure he'll fit right in, especially like might bring him back times to when he used to live in Serbia, I guess. Is the 40 million euro mark good value for money for Forest, or is it seen as a bit of a bargain from your standpoint? Because I think across the fan base, that's what it seems like it's come across. Like we're actually getting a bit of a bargain here, weirdly.
I don't know. I find those discussions impossible in this day and age when some players go for 100 million euros or sorry, 100 million pounds, like Declan Rice, who I will never understand in a million years how anyone would pay 100 million pounds for that guy. So for me, that transfer fee it's a transfer fees for me are just, they make no sense. I don't know. I think given where he is in his career, where everything is with Fiorentina, the length of contract left and so on, I think 40 million pounds is pretty much what he is worth, I'd say.
Fair enough. In regards to, obviously, the Premier League requires it's a very different skill set, or more physical set than anything else. Obviously, we understand that he's very good in the air and that, and obviously of how he played in the Serbia game against England, he looks more than adept at the physical demands. Oh, yeah. The English League. Do you think it'll be a case of him just like a hand in glove fit the Premier League for him?
Absolutely. I think he will do really well. And given what you said, those stats you said about conceding in set pieces, I think he will become a leader in defense, especially aerially in set pieces. And if you want to plug a hole aerially, Milenkovic is probably, well, given that kind of money, that's probably your best bet if you want to go and buy someone in the Serie A. So I think he will do. I think he will suit Forest really well. I think he will suit the Premier League really well. He's a little bit. He could be. If you're going to play with a high line, he might struggle. But if you're going to play with somewhat deeper, I think he'll do really well.
I feel that kind of like, I don't know about you, Christian. I mean, we'll probably talk about this a little bit more in depth, but kind of suits us to a T because we're a bit more of a counter-attacking side that's leaning towards wanting to compete with the teams in and around us to be a bit more controlling of the ball and kind of progress up the pitch in that way. So you think he'll benefit Forest in terms of where they want to get into their goals, in terms of pushing up the league? Can we expect any goals from set pieces as well? Because we need some of them as well.
Yeah, you can. He's an attacking threat on corners and attacking free kicks and stuff. He'll probably score a couple for you, no doubt.
That'd be nice. I think the ball into the box first, not beat the first man.
You need to sort that out first. Yeah, that's true. You can't do that on his own.
No, he definitely can't. I mean that's pretty much all I've got. I think that's a really good sort of detailed sort of breakdown. So thank you for that, Nima. Much appreciated.
Nima, that was. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. If anyone wants to check out the Italian podcast, where can they find it?
Well, the Italian Football Podcast, we're available on all platforms. YouTube at ITA Foot Pod, ITA Foot Pod, and on Patreon, same thing there. Our Monday pod is free for all on all podcast platforms. And if you want the whole shebang, want to support us on Patreon, it's patreon.com/ITAFoot, So patreon.com/TIFP.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Nima. Good luck for the summer with the journalism and everything else. And
cheers.
Hope everything goes well.
Yeah, and good luck for the season.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us.
This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
So that was Nima Tavallaesy from the Italian Football Podcast. Check him out and check their podcast out, all on platforms. All the descriptions in the link below, and across our social media as well. Christian, thoughts on Nima's glowing review of Milenkovic?
Yeah, good. He sort of just tapped into what we were sort of saying earlier, really, wasn't it? Really, very promising. Obviously, we aren't an elite side. We aren't going to sign elite players, but if we can get one just below that bracket that can really help us kick on the club, which it sounds like we have got with Milenkovic potentially, that can only massively benefit for us and help us get away from what we've had for the last 2 years, really. I think by all accounts it sounds very promising. It was a good review. I thought from me, it was very detailed as well. I don't think we'll be left as exposed as Italiano Fiorentina perhaps were. I think Nuno's formation is quite structurally sound, if you like. Normally, if you have to work pretty hard to get through us an open play or something pretty special. Like you think when we see the Chelsea game, for example, before we fell to bits, the first goal, obviously, which Cole Palmer set up. It normally takes something pretty fancy to get through us. So yeah, it sounds like, bear in mind we're a counter-attacking team predominantly as well, it could be a really, really good fit. And exciting times.
I mean, I really like the proposition that him and Murillo are going to be next to each other. Like I said to Nima, with Milenkovic going primarily to attack the ball, and then Murillo's kind of sweeping up and just doing all the fun stuff, basically, as setting up the attacks and pinging diags left, right, and centre. I mean, what I also liked is what you pointed out. Like, we wanted a younger version of Bolin. I think like he fits that mould. Like, he's a more of a head it and kick it kind of defender, but he's just so dominant and is hopefully going to be not that Bolly wasn't unreliable last season, but he was more capable of breaking down, I guess, in a sense. So kind of gives him a bit of a respite, and we can kind of change between a 2 and a 3 depending on our opposition and whatnot. But do you still think we'll look at another centre half as well? Because I think we was linked with Marco Friedel from Werder Bremen, I think it is it. Captain.
Yeah,
very loosely. I don't know how true those rumours are, but do you think we'll need another centre half as well?
I think so, just because obviously Niakate going, like, but I think what's impressive again, like, I know we could say about the transfers, but we're potentially going to sell Niakate for 27 million. Well, we have sold him 27 million, that's a fact, and buy 2 centre backs for less than what we sold him for, which, that's a good sign. That's a sign of that's sensible business. Like, what's happening this season? But I do think we'll need one, just because if something does happen to Murillo, it'll be nice to have a left-footed option to come into the side. So yeah, I think that will probably be an area of priority. If we can get someone who can play at left back as well, like this chap from Bremen seems to be able to do so, then yeah, sounds really good. The only issue for me will be how patient do you reckon these people are going to be, because obviously, anyone coming to Forest as a left-sided centre-half is going to know they aren't going to get past Murillo. So it's sort of like, are you happy coming as a backup sort of thing? So that might make things a bit difficult, but equally, good players want to come to Premier League regardless. So we'll see. But yeah, I suspect we will need another left-sided centre-half to sort of fill in that Niakate void.
This is probably going to sound a little bit nerdy and maybe even a little bit far-fetched, especially with it Forest, and I'm not sure if we're like tactically astute for this, but with signing someone like this Friedel who can play left back and Murillo who's a little bit more technical on the ball, we could almost adapt what City have kind of like brought to this league, with Pep brought to this league, with this like hybrid left back centre half of like with Guardiola or Ake or Akanji or Stones or however they do it, because I feel like that's where a lot of the league is going. It could be something that we see get adapted at some point, but like as I say, we can also play a natural normal 3-4-3 or 3-5-2 or whatever you want to call it. So I guess that's kind of gives us a lot of flexibility in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose had Arsenal signed Murillo, for example, they probably would have put him at left back. Obviously, they've gone for that Calafiori instead, haven't they? Which is good for us. But because I know apparently Eddie was quite keen on Murillo according to some reports, so that's good. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think because of how we play on a counter attack, like I think it might suit teams who have the ball so much, like City and Arsenal. Obviously, Arsenal have it with White, don't they? For example, where you can have sort of centre backs at full back. But I think for us, where its pace is so important to our game, like having someone like Aina, like taking them out of the equation for a centre half would probably not sit very well with me, when the best way of us attacking teams is likely to be on the break with pace. So yeah, maybe not quite there yet, maybe 5 years, but yeah.
There'll be a different bloody way of playing football the way it's going. It changes so quickly, it's unbelievable. Heading into Spain, so Milenkovic might be the signing that we signed before Spain. Do you think there'll be any more things going on before then, or probably towards the end of it? I'm assuming, like we want a left back and we would like a winger and probably a striker now. I think they're like our 3 main targets. Which would you prioritize out of them 3?
I think difficult, really. probably the winger. Like, I must be. I did feel a bit bad for Josh Bowler. It was quite funny, but it was quite bad at the same time. In that, he played in the wing and scored in the friendly, and then Nuno after the game said we only have 2 wingers at the club. So that must have been a bit of a slap in the face for him. But then again, he probably didn't even know who Josh Bowler was until last week when he showed up for pre-season. So obviously he wasn't here when he took over. But yeah, I think the wide option one's definitely the main sort of area to look at, just because if we do get an injury to Hudson-Odoi or Elanga, you're looking at square pegs in round holes again, aren't you, really? Unless you promote Bowler, and he has a great pre-season and shows that he can be a backup Premier League player, but I don't think that the clubs see it that way, especially not Nuno, going by those comments. The main thing for me is that we're doing the key core things early. I think in terms of your spine, like we've got Anderson in before pre-season even kicked the ball, and now we've looking like we've got Milenkovic in. So, realistically, you want your spine in the team through the whole pre-season ready, just so they're the ones that are most. I think the wider options will sort of come in and out a little bit more. There's a bit more flexibility of those. But just for those like centre-back pairings, for example, midfield pairings and those sorts of things, like putting the groundwork in for those before it gets serious can only be advantageous for Forest. So I'm really, really pleased with looking to get this done before we go to Spain. But personally for me, winger, I think, just because of the cover. But yeah.
It's like you say, this is very strange and uncharted territory for us, where we're actually behaving like a normal football club. I'm quite enjoying it. I mean, I remember you saying there at the start, like, I've kind of missed the chaos. I bloody don't. It's great. This is quite nice, actually. Like, just going about our business, steadying about, kind of looking at Ipswich, going, "Oh, you guys are spending money. Good for you."
This is until like deadline day comes round and we like try and sign Batshuayi despite him moving anyway. Like save him from his Istanbul nightmare when he's like held hostage somewhere because he's crossed the line. Like,
because Marinakis loves a deadline day, loves the thrill. Maybe he's had enough of bluffing, and he's like, "Well, I'm just going to play a straight shooter for a change."
Somebody just Pepe comes in on deadline day or something like that on a free.
God! Well, he's a left-footed right winger. We'll ignite his. Have you seen what we've done with Hudson-Odoi? We'll ignite that guy's career.
All about 200 grand a week, yeah. But
do it on bonuses instead, right? Is there any other business, Christian, of the kits? I suppose we could talk a little bit about them. A bit boring because not all 3 of them have come out, but it's a nice red kit. I actually don't mind it this year.
We said, look, it's going to be red, as we know. It's going to come out before the first game of the season. Like, all these people like, where's the kit? Where's the kit? Where's the kit? It's like, go outside and watch the Euros. Like, why are you getting too uptight about this? Like, it's going to come out. But yeah, no, it's a nice design. I think that obviously because we're not one of these LS elite teams, we're all, as fans, we're maybe a little bit concerned with like a template sort of kit. But I don't think this is. I think it's quite smart. It's quite unique with the stars, I think. It's definitely sort of unique to Forest anyway, in terms of, stars above the badge, etc., and the importance that those symbols have. So yeah, I think it's a very smart kit. It looks very nice. I think should be quite a popular one. I know Elangus is the best one that we've done in years, I think, which is quite, players like it. It's always good. Obviously, it's just more keeping an eye out on developments at City Ground at the minute. I know obviously the councillors have said that I think they formally approved the sale now. That's just come through today. Yeah. But yeah, it's quite nice it being quite sort of calm and casual for us, really.
Yes, it is. It's very unusual, as we said. But yeah, the ground thing is a good news, kind of a step in the right direction. Obviously, we don't know too much more other than that, really. It's whether like it comes with the planning permissions or we've got to redo that, and then like when I do the Bridgeford end, that's like a different council or whatever. It's just an absolute, I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it. It's just kind of a bit confusing. It's not in our job titles or anything like that to kind of know about these things. We kind of just read and report and hope that things come to fruition. But is there any other business, Christian, before we?
No, I'm just sort of looking at the stadium thing now. So I think I'm just reading some tweets on it. So it sounds like obviously the club probably, it said that they may have to they might put a new basically application for main stands and the Bridgeford stand as well, because obviously now it's gone to 40,000 from 35,000, for example. But yeah, it's obviously that. So it could be a whole new application. Like, I don't know. It sounds like Forest aren't basically willing to sign the dotted line until they've got clearance that they can actually do that. Which I suppose, on one hand, does make sense. It just means that we might have to wait a little bit longer for some positive news, which isn't ideal. But hopefully, I'm sure they can come to some agreement with Rushcliffe. It sounds like now that the priority is to stay at the ground, which is good. It's, hopefully we can renovate it and bring it back into like the modern day. But yeah, fingers and toes crossed.
Have you seen actually just before we finish? Have you seen Marinakis has got a new little kind of director's box, if you want to call it? He's got like a little elevator that comes up. He's like Paddy McGuinness in Take Me Out or whatever it is now. He just could kind of reveal himself, like stars in their eyes esque.
At least he can break his TVs in there and no one can see, I suppose. But, yeah.
He won't need to. We've got Milenkovic heading balls. It's fine. Like, we can't really get angry at that. Hopefully not be able to get as angry as often this season from conceding from crap set pieces. Like the one against Luton always springs to my mind, where like Serge Aurier's dipped like beyond underneath the ball and it's trickled along the line and somehow fell to Ogbene or whatever his name was to slot it home. And I was just like, what is this rubbish that I am watching with set piece defending?
That was a bad day.
It was a bad day. Very, very bad day. But yeah, no, it's all very positive. Obviously, the team go to Spain, play on Friday night as we record this. So hopefully another good result and a point in the right direction. As we said, the results aren't too much of a big deal in pre-season. It's all about the fitness and how Nuno gets his ways across. But it is all looking up Millhouse, I'd have to say. But yeah, great. Unbelievable. But until next time, Christian, I don't know if there's any more. There's no more, is there?
I don't think so, mate, though.
No. Okay. Well, until next time, and when there's more news and I don't know, more of this calmness, I guess, on here on Red Side of the Trent that we can report about. We'll see you next time. And until then, drop us a like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Come on, you Reds.